In this video, I am going to be talking about following C++ topic: class member function, types of class member functions, and member function coding. Member function is a function included as a member of a class. Inside the class, you can include a member function, a function as a member. If a function is included as a member of this class, we call that either member function or method. Right? For example, if I have a function to print hello, this is going to be the member function of this class. I'm going to be using this editor to explain the concepts, the topics. Let me create a class before I actually start talking about the member functions. I'm going to have a class called country. Country has a name, definitely. Let me give the name of the country name 32, and a country has an area. So this is a struct. The way I can use this struct would be to first create an object, country, and set data into the object. I can access the member by using this object dot name, and these are the ways I can access. If I want to copy data into this member, this is a string, so I need to use the string copy function. For example, if I copy the name India into this name, and if I want to set area, it's going to be 3287263 square kilometer. So you can set the data into the attributes by accessing those attributes through the object. Now once you set, you also would like to see whether the data is actually set or not. So you can use a cout statement to display. I'm going to be using having this using directive, so that I don't want to keep typing std namespace. First, let me print name ct.m name, and print area. This is the code where you access the data and you display the data. This thing should be a trivial for you if you have already learned about structure and use the structure. Let me compile this code and show you the output. I think there is a problem here. because my editor will want me to have this directive. So with this, let me try to run it again. Now it's compiled. So this is the output. You can see the data was set, the name India, area 3287263 square kilometers. But this way of accessing data is not good style, is not recommended style, because if we want to use object, we want object to have data, and we want the data to be kept as private as possible. So we would like to have some member functions to access the data, and recommended approach again is to use well-defined member functions or methods to access the data. Right? For that, I don't want to access data using this approach. This is not recommended approach. The recommended approach is you create function data or attributes to write or to read. The function that you can have can be categorized in three categories. Here I'm going to be talking about the first category. The first category is the function to write data into it. So if you have function that is allowed to write data into the attributes, such a function is called setter, because it sets the data, it sets the attributes to the data, or sometimes it may also be called as mutator, or it can also be called as a modifier. Right? So depending on the context, depending on individual test and preferences, people tend to use different names for this category of functions, but this is a category which is actually is designed to set data into the attributes. Let me write a setter function. I'm gonna give the name set. This is going to be my setter function. I don't want this function to return anything, so void, but I want this function to get data, so that that data can be set into the attributes. So I want this function to receive a name and area. So the way to receive name is going to be constant character pointer, and area unsigned. Right, with this I can copy, I can have this statement inside our function, and I can copy area as well. So this function basically sets data into the attributes. Therefore it is called setter or mutator or modifier. Another category of the function is called getter. Other names for getter are sometimes we tend to call this type of function as a query, or sometimes this is also called as accessor. accessor function, right? The way, let me, because I have two data, so I cannot return the purpose of this function actually returns the data in the attributes and returns it, right? So we have two attributes, so we cannot have single function to return two attributes unless we decide to make function a bit more complicated. If I want to keep function simple, then I need to have two different functions to return two different data attributes. So I'm gonna call the function get name to return the name data, and I'm gonna call the function get area to return the area of the country. So get name will return, it should return m name, and get area should return, right? So these functions are not complete. We need to specify whether we need to have parameters or return type. This is this attribute is a character array, so the way to return this attribute, this name, is return character pointer, and the return type for array is going to be unsigned, right? With this this function will return. These are not complete. I'll come back and make this function complete, so wait for few minutes. First I want to make use of this function. So I want to use the setter function to set the data, and I want to use this two getter functions to receive the data instead of directly accessing this m name and area like that I did in line 41, 42 and line 44. So let me set data by calling setter function. I want to set name. First data item is name India, and second data item is going to be this area. So this function receives India and this area amount, and it copies that data into the attributes. Now we also want to see whether the data is set properly or not, so let me copy this, make use of this code and make necessary changes. Instead of here I'm going to be calling this function to get access to the name, so, and in this place I'm calling get area function, right? So this is a more systematic, a more recommended, and better way of setting data into the attributes and getting data. This is the approach which is not recommended at all. So let me compile and show you the output. So you can see the output, the same output printed. Coming back to the code, now let me make this functions better, improve this function. Whenever we have getter, query, accessor, these functions are actually the function designed, they're not designed to make any changes to the attributes. They should not be allowed to make any changes, but the programmer doesn't have any control. Sometimes there could be the logic inside this function may be very big, and unintentionally there could be some attempt to make changes, right? For example, m name 0 equals to c, something like this. So this kind of attempt should not be allowed, right? This should not be allowed. This should be prevented, and the way of preventing that is making this function as constant. If you put this keyword, this keyword will make this function as a constant. Essentially, if you have this constant keyword, then that indicates that this is a query function or getter function, accessor function, right? And if you have this constant, then compiler will not allow this kind of changes. So before the compilation completes, you will have to correct all these problems from the code, so that potential problem is actually avoided. Now let me make this area constant as well. Now we have another problem. If this is a function constant, and if this function returns the address of this attribute, and in this place I have access to that address, then I may try to write data into that address. That means this even if the logic that is placed directly in this function does not make any changes, but indirectly through the address that is returned, there could be attempt to make changes. For example, I may try to copy another country name into this name. Right, so if I attempt to copy this name, and if I don't have this constant here, then it will allow this name to be changed. So if I display the name after copying that string, the China, into the name, then the India should be replaced by China. Look, so the name is now China. This is totally should not be allowed at all, right? This should be prevented, this kind of changes. So for that reason, we want to have constant, and if the things are written by either pointer or address or reference, then compiler will require this return also to be a constant, right? So if you written by as a pointer or written reference, sometimes it could be, for example, this M area can be written by reference. So if it is written by reference, then the reference to M area will come in this place, and this code, this function may be used to make changes. So to prevent that, either you make it constant if you want to written by reference, or you don't return by reference, right? So this makes these two functions as a query function, right? So again, setter function, the purpose of setter function is to set data into the attributes. They can make changes, and you cannot make this setter function constant because they are actually designed to make changes. Getter function are designed to get access to the data, but do not making any changes to the data. The third category is called special member function. These are the functions that are called as constructor and destructor, which is not going to be discussed. I'm not going to discuss constructor destructor in this video, but these are the functions that are designed to execute a logic during the creation or of objects. So during the creation and destruction of objects. So for example, if you create an object for the first time, then you want to execute some necessary logic so that this object is in some state, some good state, desired state. And if this object is destroyed when it goes out of scope, you want to also perform some execute some logics, right? So the purpose of a special member function is to ensure that object is created well, properly, and it is destroyed properly. Now, having discussed member functions and the categories of member functions, I like to point out the coding part of the member function. The member function can be coded like this. It can be, entire definition can be put inside the class definition. If it is put, entire definition is put, then this is called inline function. This is actually which is equivalent to, if you put inline keyword in the front, this makes it inline function. Our compiler, even if not, you don't put inline keyword in the front, then compiler will treat this these functions as inline functions. But if it's also possible that you can have the prototype inside the class definition, and you can put move this function definition outside the class. So I want to put this function definition outside the class, and inside the class I only want to have the declaration or prototype. Right. So if I want to define outside, then I need to specify, tell the compiler that this function belongs to the scope of this class, right? The way of telling compiler about that scope is just specify the scope just before the name of the function by having name of the class and scope resolution operator. So if you put the definition outside, then you need to put this name of the class and scope resolution, and it will that will make this function as a definition of the function which is actually declared, or which prototype is placed inside the class definition. Similarly, you can also have the definition of this function outside, and you can leave prototype inside. Again, you need to specify the scope. Right, so now you have class member functions defined, definition of member function placed outside the class definition. Now talking about the prototype of the function, member function, definition of the member function, and invocation of member function. Right, so this is the way to invoke the member function. Use object followed by this dot operator and followed by the name of the function with the parameter or values of the parameter or arguments placed inside the parenthesis. And this is these are the ways to invoke the function. Okay. If function returns data, you can use that data directly. You can put this function in expression as well. If a function does not return, then you cannot put that function invocation inside an expression. Now with this, I am going to stop this explanation.